Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty, who sits on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, good to have you with us. Your Democratic colleagues there in the Senate and in the House are making a lot of noise saying it's Congress that has the duty to debate and decide whether or not the U.S. were to engage in a foreign war. Here's what Senator Tim Kaine of the Commonwealth of Virginia said about it. Listen here. He said it's not in our national security interest to go into a war with Iran unless that war is absolutely necessary to defend the United States. I'm deeply concerned that the recent escalation of hostilities between Israel and Iran could quickly pull the United States into another endless conflict. This is a regime, Senator, that's been chanting death to America for 45 years. If it gets its hands on nuclear weapons, the threat to the homeland and to American interests in the region would seem to be very clear. So why does there even need to be debate here?
Well, John, I think what you've heard President Trump say time and again is that he's not going to allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I think you've also heard President Trump say that he doesn't want us to engage in more of these endless wars. So whatever President Trump does, and I know that he's 3 steps ahead of everybody else here, whatever he does, it's going to be putting America's interests first. It's going to be bringing Iran to a point where they do not have a nuclear weapon. That's the stated objective, and it's going to have to happen very, very quickly. I don't think the time frame that Senator Kaine is considering is relevant to this situation at all. President Trump wants to see the carnage come to an end. He's been clear about that here. He's been clear about that with Ukraine. He wants to see the loss of lives over. This regime has been extremely difficult to deal with. I've seen President Trump deal with this regime before. I served in his administration last time. The maximum pressure campaign that he imposed was working. Regretfully, the Biden administration put us back on the same train that Obama had us on with respect to Iran marching its way toward a nuclear weapon. President Trump is not going to allow that to happen. He's had a much more difficult hand to deal with here. That's why the Israelis have stepped in. They've seen the threat. They're doing what they need to do. And whatever decision President Trump takes, I can assure you this, he's going to be taking America's interest to heart. And again, basic principles here. He wants to see an end to the carnage. He wants to see that end come fast. And he's not going to allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
One of the decisions that the president seems to have made, at least at this point, is that he is not going to allow Israel to take out the Ayatollah. He put out on Truth Social a short time ago that we know where the Ayatollah is, but he's safe for the moment. Lindsey Graham thinks that's a mistake, says he thinks he needs to go. Listen here.
Wouldn't the world be better off if the Ayatollahs went away and replaced by something better? Wouldn't Iran be better off? It's time to close the chapter on the Iranian Ayatollah and his henchmen. Let's close that chapter soon and start a new chapter in the Mideast, one of tolerance, hope, and peace.
Yeah, Senator Fetterman agrees with Senator Graham. Where do you come down on that issue?
We're all going to have our own opinions here, but what I want to be clear about is President Trump has never articulated the need for a regime change. What he wants to do is to bring the Iranians to the table. The Iranians ought to look at this very, very carefully and realize President Trump is not going to allow them to have a nuclear weapon. They may need to consider what the consequence will be if they don't. If they don't get to the table and make a deal fast. He's offering them an off-ramp here. I think the window's closing, though. This needs to be resolved quickly.
All right. So you said President Trump doesn't see the need for a regime change, at least he's not pushing forward at this moment. You said that people have their you say that people have their own opinions on it. What is your opinion on this? Because there are a lot of people out there, Senator Graham among them, Senator Fetterman, I believe, is of the same mind that if you leave the Ayatollah in place, if you don't change the regime, you're going to have the same oppressive theocracy running Iran that's been running it for the last 45 years. You're going to be right back here where we are with Israel and Iran 5 years from now, that the Iranian people are clamoring for democracy. They thirst for it. Why not take this opportunity to change things on the ground there?
John, I think if you understand anything about me, I know who the person is responsible for making this decision for the United States. I'm not getting ahead of him. This is President Trump's decision with respect to that. But I'll say this, the Iranian people will ultimately make the decision. If the Ayatollahs continue down this path toward a nuclear weapon, I think the decision is going to become very clear for the Iranian people, too. Again, the Ayatollahs need to wake up. They need to consider the options that they have right now, and those options have narrowed dramatically. This needs to stop, and I think President Trump's going to make certain that it does in a way that advances America's interests.
All right, Senator Hagerty, good to talk to you. Thanks for taking the time, sir.
John.
Appreciate it.
Always good to be with you.